And that is picked up. How dangerous. Woods on the return. Cuts to the outside. And he's taken down with 2 seconds remaining.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Marcus Jones may say, guys, if they kick it to me, hold the phone. And they're doing just that. He's going to take it 2 yards deep. He had 8 career kick returns for touchdowns. Make it 9! Marcus Jones!
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Over the middle. Elliott will take it for a first down and goal.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
And now the short pitch to Smith. And Smith spins out of it. And Smith inside the 15, looking for the corner, and gets it. Touchdown, Bears. Keandre Coburn whipped at the line of scrimmage, and Smith sped off for 32 yards and a score.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is one of those Mondays where so much has changed since the last time we spoke with you on Friday at 6, and even in our postgame, or pregame and postgame of Baylor in Texas. It will be hard to get to all of it. Gary Patterson out. Jeff Traylor locked up, it appears, for a little bit. Texas Tech search continues. Baylor, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and West Virginia with very nice wins over the weekend. Ouch. If you are Texas and Iowa State especially. UH stuns SMU. You heard the kick return. The college football debate continues. The college football standings come out this week. Cowboys magic, Astros toughness. What have I missed? Because I'm sure there's something. Pittsburgh lost despite 500-plus yards passing. Miami wins again. Iowa, what happened to you? Against Wisconsin, and Ohio State flexes their muscles, but it wasn't easy. Michigan, well, Michigan State with Walker now, a Heisman Trophy, possibly front runner. Craig, unbelievable weekend. And Paul Catalina, here we go with Sikkim 365 Sports.
Yeah, it was a great weekend of college football. You know, on Saturday or Friday, I don't know which day it was, somebody asked about, what upsets do you see? And I said, I don't really see a whole lot. And turns out to be, your typical college football where maybe you're not expecting a lot of fireworks, and yet there are, more than July 4th. And that was certainly the case this weekend. I'd loved seeing all the chaos and craziness that was going on, and some of the things that we expected to happen that did happen, but that, obviously play a factor into what's ahead, and just interesting to see. But, yeah, Baylor beating Texas in the fashion that they did was a huge win for them. Now in the top 15 in both polls, 7-1, and with a, schedule that you've got, 4 games remaining, and 2 games are against interim head coaches. Now with both TCU this weekend and Texas Tech, they won't get any more cracks at Gary Patterson unless he goes and lands somewhere else in the Big 12 or somehow ends up on a future schedule of theirs. So that's obviously one of the more interesting aspects of this weekend. But, yeah, I mean, it was was all good. Saturday was fun. It was a long weekend, but Saturday was a lot of fun, and Sunday followed up pretty nicely as well with the NFL.
All right, Paul, Gary Patterson's out 21 years. He was really good for TCU, but we could see the slippage and even meltdowns. Brian Estridge will join us, voice of TCU, here in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, and look, Gary Patterson was transformational at TCU. He made them a relevant football program, which they had not been. He's the greatest coach in their history. And, there's like a large gap between the 40s and 50s when TCU had, guys like Doak Walker, which actually might have been in the 30s. I don't know. But
Davey O'Brien.
Davey O'Brien. Doak Walker's SMU. Please don't kill me. SMU fans, but
all three of them are just.
But
no offense. But.
But there are things that no coach, no matter how many statues they have of them, can avoid. One of them is mediocrity. When you're paying a guy a lot of money not to be mediocre, and the team's mediocre, that's going to finally pop the bubble of protection that Gary Patterson had around in Fort Worth. One is that if you already have bad attendance and it's getting worse, that's not going to help. And three is if you treat people like garbage, or you automatically jump at everybody's ass every time somebody even writes something some way cross about you, and your arguments for doing so are often nonsensical, there's a time where the people around you are going to say, we're tired of this crap. And that's what happened with Gary Patterson.
When you start to lose, you lose the buffer. You lose some of the mulligans. Grant Teaff, the Hall of Fame coach, everyone knows, former Baylor coach. I spoke with him earlier today, and he had a great relationship with Gary Patterson. And he talks about Patterson, the coach, but also the decision by TCU. And in coaching searches in general, Dave Aranda admired Gary Patterson because of the deep, you can imagine those defensive minds, and his comments about him. And then I asked about Gary Patterson as well. And it happens to be the week that Baylor's playing TCU, and there was a part of me, just a small part of me, because Gary Patterson's had some big moments and some also bad moments against Baylor. That's been a great rivalry. That he didn't want to continue. He was given that opportunity. Brian Estridge will clear all that up for us, because he didn't want to lose a weekend to Baylor. Part of me is like, I know that's not what went into the decision, but to just not fathom losing this week. If, in fact, they do, TCU might rise up under Jerry Kill.
Yeah, they might. That'd be a really disappointing thing for Baylor. They have no business losing to TCU this weekend. None. They have no business losing to TCU in Fort Worth with the way the two teams are playing. You're right. I mean, maybe TCU rallies. I thought, Texas Tech might do the same, and that was not the case against Oklahoma. Then again, they were playing Oklahoma. But, Gary Patterson, I think it was very obvious he had a massive dislike for Baylor. And, a large part of it a few years ago was Art Briles and the rivalry that those two had. But that doesn't explain why he spent years randomly blocking various media members and fans of the fan base, and come to find out that other fan bases I saw here recently were like, hey, wait a second, why am I randomly blocked by Gary? It's just weird stuff like that is just not. I don't know, just that part of him that got so bothered by people, although he acted like it didn't bother him, but it clearly did. And just like you said, some of the tantrums and some of the rants and things like that, he just, it never sat well with me. I never had a problem with the guy until I looked up one day and I was just blocked, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine too. And then, just some of the things he said along the way. So, tremendous football coach. Anybody in football is going to, pay their respects today to Gary Patterson. I think he had a big personality issue, though. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, they got worse and worse and worse, to the point where, yes, even your own fans, who very rarely do fans, if you're winning the way that he was winning, do they really point out your flaws, especially in your person? Well, that's just the way, that's our coach. That's how he is. He's winning, so it doesn't matter. But
you like it when he's spicy, when he's your coach, yeah.
As soon as he starts losing, though, you start to realize, wow, that's actually not that cool and tough. It's actually very amateur hour and very immature, a lot of the things that he's saying at times. And so I think that, TCU fans probably realize that as things continue to struggle along. And I saw a number of them who were, on board with the move being made sooner rather than later. It wouldn't surprise me if he did look at the calendar and saw Baylor coming up and the decision of hey, we want you to stay on in some capacity. And it wouldn't surprise me if that played a little factor into it. It's just the timing's so funny. But, an unbelievable, story coming out of this weekend. We talked about the possibilities of this starting to bubble up, obviously, but did not expect it to happen, just a few days later. So that's a massive job opening, at least in this state. Nationally, I'm not sure how coveted it will be, but I'm sure there will be a lot of people interested. And, of course, with Tech open and the possibility of what dominoes or pieces are shifted around due to that job. And, okay, if Dykes goes to Tech, well, there's SMU, all these different things. It's going to be a very interesting coaching carousel here in the state of Texas.
Or Sonny Dykes ends up going across town to TCU that may have started part of this downfall. I want to read some of the text messages or chat room as well. 254-339-1122. But Gary Patterson out. Brian Estridge will talk about that. Sam Conn of theathletic.com wrote a big feature on Gary Patterson and how all this happened. Where did the fall begin? That's at 3:45. My one-on-one today with Dave Aranda for us at 4 o'clock. And I do ask him about the Berenstain Bears, the book. He referred to that in the post-game press conference, and I'm not so sure we shouldn't play like the video of the Bears, the Berenstain Bears, old hat, new hat, and what he was talking about when it comes to tendencies and what a team gets comfortable doing or not. Yeah,
there was a lot of people that were laughing while he was telling that story, and, when he first brought it up, I kind of chuckled at first, but then I actually was listening to him, and I can see why it was funny, but it was, if you really listen to what he was saying and you get over like the, he mentioned a children's book, because that's what it was. Once you got over that, it was like actually listening to what he said, it made perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And so, it was kind of an odd reaction, but, and certainly one that he wasn't like even messing with. Like people were laughing and he had this look on his face of like, no, I'm being dead serious right now. It's not a joke. I love listening to Aranda. I've grown to, as he's gotten more comfortable, it's been easier to listen to him and get a better idea now that he's figuring some things out or has figured some things out of his mind. Because I think a lot of times last year, just everything was so, whatever, that it was just kind of hard to grasp onto anything really. But there's been a lot of substance there, especially this year. And, he's going to be coveted elsewhere, but, Baylor's got a really good one right now. I asked him about coaching searches. I asked him about what Mike Tomlin said compared to what maybe even Dave Aranda mentioned. Also, Grant Teaff on Dave Aranda when we have that from today at 4:45. Now, Jeff Traylor locked up. He'll be live with us at 4:30. We'll get into that because that could affect, although the contract itself starts actually in January, so Tech and TCU or anyone else can still make a run at him before that $7.5 million buyout. If somebody wants him bad enough, they can still look at that. But Jeff Traylor locked up, it appears, at least for a year or two, even though the contract is a lengthy 10 years or so. All right, go ahead. I said, going into the week, I said if UTSA, if they really have goals of being bigger than they are right now, then it was imperative that they lock up Jeff Traylor, even if that's for just a couple more years or whatever the case may be. And so it was, a big decision by UTSA administration, I'm sure, because, a school their size and where they are, it wouldn't have been a knock on them had Jeff Traylor decided to go somewhere else, but they did have the opportunity in front of them to fight for him and to fight for keeping him around a little longer, and it looks like they did that. And so I commend UTSA for getting that done. From what we could tell, Jeff Traylor thought that they would, fight hard, and they did. And so that's good to see. And, we'll see how that shakes out, obviously, because after that happened, TCU opened up. So, it did. You're exactly right. And now you wonder the domino effect. But it looks like UT San Antonio has their guy locked up for now. He'll join us at 4:30. From Ron Tamlin, I was going to bring this up. Smokey, Paul, and Craig, there's a part of me that wonders if the consistent success of Baylor sports in the major ones over the past decade is leading to some other coaching changes. Starting with Mack Brown, Baylor football now has run off 3 UT coaches. How many at Tech? How many at TCU? Likewise, Scott Drew's success and how it's affected not just UT hoops, but others as well. Think about this. I think it's fair to say Art Briles got Mack Brown eventually fired. Not just Briles, but Briles and Baylor and the resurgence and beating him straight up. His last game was the loss to Baylor, all right? Someone brought up the fact it might even be with Tommy Tuberville. Matt Rule most likely led to Tom Herman's downfall, along with the fact that maybe he led to his own downfall. But also Matt Wells is since Dave Aranda was hired. And they're close friends. And now you see Gary Patterson. Now, whether or not Baylor coaches led to some of those, it's interesting that Texas has had these coaches since Baylor's been through some wreckage at times, and they
continue to get the right one.
I don't think it helps Texas, but I think Texas is probably. I'm going to talk about them for a second. They have a three-horned problem, which is one is the other schools around them. So I mean, or I don't know. Oklahoma's been nothing but good the entire time that Texas has been bad, save for a year or so. That A&M is making more money in the Southeast Conference, and Texas can't lord over them anymore. And then they lose to schools like Baylor and TCU regularly, and those schools have been more consistent over the time. I know TCU just fired Gary Patterson than Texas has. I don't think Baylor got Mac Brown fired. I think Baylor was maybe a big part of that. I think the biggest thing got Mac Brown fired is Robert Griffin, Andrew Luck, and Johnny Manziel.
Or Garrett Gilbert not being one of those, which he was expected to be.
Yeah, see what they're going for there. I don't really agree, though. They didn't get Mac Brown fired. They just finished him off. He was already limping and had arrows stuck in him and bullet holes and all that by the time he limped into Waco, and he had like a saving grace to win that game, and they just beat him. So that basically ended that. But he was already, crawling to the finish line, basically. Matt Wells has nothing to do with Baylor, and neither did the other ones, really, in my opinion. I mean, Baylor's had some nice wins over some schools that have made changes, but I think more than like any win that they had that forced anything, I think it's just the overall sustained success that has, been able to lead to other places maybe going like, well, hey, we're not up to that level, or why are they able to do this and we're not? I don't know. I don't really see Baylor having a direct effect other than just being pretty regular competition in the Big 12. And at the same time, though, to your point,
go ahead.
At the same time, to your point, it is amazing that they've been able to be consistent. I see a lot of TCU fans who are, ready for the next guy and ready for – Joey McGuire. Let's get Joey McGuire here. See a lot of media guys who are pumping up Joey McGuire for the TCU or the SMU job and all of that, but who knows how that works out. I mean, we've seen Texas go through coach after coach after coach and finally feel like they've got, the right guy in Steve Sarkisian. So if anything, I've just been impressed more so than what Baylor's affected in any way. I've been impressed that they've been able to make good hires and continue to remain in the mix, because after 2016 and after Jim Grobe's interim year, had they made the wrong hire there and it was Chad Morris rather than Matt Rule or something, then who knows where this program is right now. They might be coming off like 5 straight losing seasons. They might be the old Baylor.
No, if you wouldn't have gotten the Matt Rule hire correctly.
Right.
You could be set back a decade.
And if you didn't get the Dave Aranda hire correct, because last year, 2-7. So if they would have come back this year and been similar to that, I think you'd have really big concerns of like, oh, shoot, man, it's not a COVID year this time. Like, this is a regular year, and we're still not. Like, that would have been frightening if you were Mack Rhodes. Instead, he's 7-1. He just beat Texas in a great come-from-behind win, and they should, on paper, at worst go 2-2. But probably go 3-1 in this last month of the season, which will put them hovering around 10 wins, which would be incredible for Aranda in year number 2, and especially given how hard last year was. So I just think they've been smart and good about making the right hires and haven't suffered from the disease that some schools like Texas have of missing out on guys and it prolonging the downward trend of the program.
The game of Saturday, real quickly, because we have Aranda at 4, but the game Saturday, and then Brian Estridge, we need to get to him on TCU. What I was impressed about is that Baylor didn't play their A game. And I know that Texas didn't either, but you're down 21-10, some teams can panic. They just kept, as they could say, all the coaching cliches, just chopping wood. They just stayed who they were, true to who they were. Gary Bohannon tightened it up a little bit, and he threw 2 bad picks, no question, could have cost him the game. But the defense just kept tightening the screws, and they just frustrated the hell out of Casey Thompson, who did miss a wide-open receiver early in the game when Xavier Worthy was running free like he was on the long pass as well. Bijan Robinson had 42 yards.
43.
40. Okay, he exploded for 43. How in the world? That's how good the defense was. Thompson did hurt him. His legs hurt him, and then eventually they tightened that up, and Baylor took advantage of he started pounding the football. A few other plays from Bohannon. Defense just kept giving up. I think I saw where there was 9 Texas drives that at some point took a snap in Baylor territory. and they end up blowing a 21-10 lead, and Baylor has a lot to do with that as well. Someone asked me on Wisconsin, great win against Iowa.
Yeah.
Big time win against Iowa.
Yeah, I wasn't, that was one of those, you see any upset picks? And I looked at that one, and I glanced at it, and I'm like, nah, I don't think so. And sure enough, yeah, it was a really good win for Wisconsin. So shout out to the Badgers. And, yeah, for Iowa, that's college football for you, right? The roller coaster ride of – you can be high as high one moment, and then a couple weeks later, be searching for answers. And, I feel for the Hawkeyes fans who had big hopes. But a great win for Wisconsin, who earlier in the season, it was a lot of frustration, I guess frustration is the right word. I can use that one. But, hey, you turn around and get a big win versus Iowa as the season goes along. So that's what it's all about. But going back to Baylor, yeah, they shut Bijan down. They absolutely shut him down. He didn't have a run longer than 9 yards. He ended up with 43 yards, didn't even approach 20 carries, and they did not let him run free. They were attacking him, and as I think it was Jalen Petrie said in the postgame, they focused on gap integrity, and they also focused on swarming him as soon as he crossed the line of scrimmage. And I think if you go back and watch some of those plays, that's exactly what they did. I mean, there were 4 and 5 guys flying at him, trying to bring him down, and they were successful in doing so. So it was a tremendous effort by Ron Roberts' defense. Yeah, Texas hit on some pass plays, and Casey Thompson was pretty evasive. I mean, he could have been sacked if it was somebody else probably another 4 or 5 times, but he was evasive and good on throwing on the run. And at the same time, it was a very impressive showing by the Baylor run defense.
We'll hear from Dave Aranda at 4, Jeff Traylor 4:30. We're going to take a break and come back.
No, we got him.
We got him right now. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU. He joins us now on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Brian, thanks for your time. I know you know Gary well. You've broadcast the game since he's been the head coach and for a long, long time. Where did it all go wrong?
I don't know if it went wrong. I think after a couple of decades, guys, I think maybe it was just time for a different voice. If you talk to the administration and you listen to what they have to say, I mean, it sounds like that's where they were thinking that, times they are changed, as Bob Dylan's saying, right? And I think maybe that's what's happening at TCU. I think the last 3.5, 4 years have been, I think they've been trying, obviously, for Coach P. They've been trying for the administration. And I think that, there are some that were decision makers that decided that a different voice and maybe a different roadmap was what TCU needed to remain relevant and to remain in that conversation as one of the upper division teams in the Big 12. And so I think that's what we're all looking at here is a perfect storm that ended this weekend.
Brian, how much of and that Coach Patterson has always been a guy that is prone to, kind of pop off and his tete-a-tetes with Baylor or, all that kind of happened, sporadically once in a while. He kind of had one a year was his deal. But this year it was seemingly every other week he had some kind of new thing he was kind of rambling on. How much of that was because he felt that heat and that things weren't going his way anymore as the head coach at TCU?
I think I'm sure there was some frustration there, Paul, that he was going through that he wanted to, maybe take the opportunity to vent about. The one thing about Gary Patterson, love him or hate him, is that you always know where he stands, and I think in that regard, there may be some folks who are going to miss that because he's going to tell you how he feels. There's no sugarcoating. There's no filter. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He will often regret that at times. But what you see is what you get with Gary Patterson. And so I think the frustration that you saw in those press conferences at times was a frustration that he was experiencing on a day-to-day basis with his football team. And so, I think there is some of that is refreshing. Let's face it. I mean, in this day and age where everyone is so guarded and close to the vest, and there is some of that is refreshing. But there comes a point too where if you're an administrator, I'm sure it reaches a point where it's not healthy for your program or for your school or for your coaching staff or whatever. And I'm sure that probably figured into it somehow in the decision.
So, Brian, take us through the timing here. Why, or I guess I saw the report yesterday that TCU gave him the option to coach out the rest of the year, and that was something I guess he wasn't interested in. Can you kind of take us through the agreement that was made and why it resulted in him stepping down right now?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a great question. In fact, it's going to be a great book. No, I'm kidding. I think it could be a great book. And that how did it all unfold the way that it did? Why did that conversation take place this weekend and not take place, in 4 weeks? Why was the reaction from Coach Patterson what it was? Because I do know that TCU wanted him to be able to go out, in a prideful way. There was talk of a Gary Patterson Day in Fort Worth and an opportunity for him to, say goodbye to his seniors on that last day against Kansas, that last home game for TCU. And, I think he deserved that. And I think that's what TCU wanted. But let's face it, folks. I mean, Gary Patterson's very prideful, and one of the things that he is proud of is his track record. And I think he felt like his track record at TCU and the equity they had built up deserved maybe different than the outcome that he was being shown. And so he decided, hey, if you don't want me, I guess you don't want me right now. So let's go ahead and peel the Band-Aid off and rip the scab off, and let's just get it all exposed out there. And so that was the avenue that he took. That's the route that it looks like TCU is going to follow. And so that's the hand you're dealt now. If you're the administration, the athletic director, and the chancellor at TCU. And so now you just try to make the best and most of that here in the coming weeks.
What's been the reaction among those at TCU? You kind of mentioned a little bit about what they're possibly thinking. What is it? Is it a somber day, a sad day? Is it a day of new life? What's it like?
I think it's a real somber day. I really think that it was one of those deals where you got 2 decades in, and for a lot of TCU fans, that's all they've ever known. Especially the t-shirt fan for TCU. If you're 25 and under, all you've ever known is Coach Gary Patterson. All you've ever known is 17 bowl games. All you've ever known is Rose Bowl and Fiesta Bowl and Alamo Bowl. And that's all you've ever known. You've known the move from the WAC to Conference USA to the Mountain West to the Big East for a cup of coffee to the Big 12. And so I think for a lot of folks, it's a real somber day. When you look on social media, when I talked to folks today, there were a lot of people expressing sadness that it ended and sadness that it ended this way. I mean, not only was he a football coach at TCU who happens to have a statue outside of the stadium, but he and his wife are very philanthropic in the community. They were parents to over 700 student athletes who played football at TCU under his watch. I mean, those 700 student athletes now have wives and kids who are all part of the TCU family. That's a big number. I think somber is the right word to describe it. I think it's going to take a little while for this group to kind of get over it. And that's why I think, that's why the hire is so important. As much as you hate to say this, a really good hire can make folks forget a lot of that stuff. Mm. And, I think that's what it's got to come down to now for TCU, and who that is, yet to be determined.
What do you think Jeremiah Donati is looking for in someone to replace a guy with a statue? I mean, that's intimidating.
I think he's looking. That's a great question. Well, I think he's looking for a guy who deserves another statue. I think you got to go out and you got to be trying to find the next Gary Patterson. And I'm not talking about a defensive coordinator or a guy who maybe does things exactly the way Gary does. And I don't think that's the case. I mean, how many times do you see it across the country when you hire a football coach or an athletic director? The pendulum always swings to the opposite side. And so maybe it's an offensive guy. Maybe it's a guy who is a CEO, more of a CEO coach than Coach P was, who was all in on the defense. I mean, I think you got all these things that come into play. What do I think? Which is not, what I think and what I know are two different things. I think a lot. I don't know very much. I think TCU tries to find a sitting head coach. I think in a perfect world, you find a sitting head coach with Texas ties. I think you find a sitting head coach who's had some success offensively. I think you try to find a family guy who is willing and ready to put down some roots in Fort Worth. And I think all those. I think if you can find someone who knows a little bit about the Big 12 as well, I think all those things are on the list. And you hope to check as many of those boxes as you can. And maybe you don't check them all. And maybe you do create a new box and take a risk on somebody. You go, you know what? Yeah, let's make him tell me no. maybe there is some of that. And so I think that's kind of what they're looking at. A lot of names out there obviously being thrown around. Or, it's interesting. You guys know this as well as I do. A lot of names, but then there aren't a lot of names.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really kind of 3 names or 4 names being bannered about. And so, it's going to be interesting to see if it does, in fact, come from that smaller pool.
Brian, just in terms of the team this year, going into the season, there was a lot of different thoughts to have about TCU, but one thing you knew was Max Duggan was back, and you got Zach Evans and Quentin Johnston, and there was a lot of optimism for the offense, even though the line was a bit of a question mark. The defense obviously has been a disappointment compared to their normal defensive performance. For you, just team-wise, why was it not connecting this year? Is it injuries wreaking havoc? What was it for you?
Yeah, Craig, I think you can point to injuries, but everybody has injuries. Everybody's, coaches always like to say we're young. You can say that, you can find young players playing on every team. I think it was the disconnect in the defensive backfield. Gary demands a lot of his defense. There's a lot of communication that has to take place. And I think when you lose Trey Merrick and you lose Ardarius Washington and you force LaKendrick Van Zandt into a role that maybe he was uncomfortable with, that you lost some communication on that back end. Take Garrett Wallow, the linebacker, who had a really good knack for getting everyone in the right position. You take those guys out of the mix, and I think that's what this defense is really lacking, is essentially having a quarterback on the field to relay what Gary Patterson's giving him from the sidelines and make sure that it carries over, because there are reads as part of this defense that have to happen on the fly. So I think that has been the disconnect. I think you touched on everything there to start with. The surprise has probably been the offensive line. At times, the offensive line has been really good this year. They've been able to run the ball for nearly 400 yards in a game. They've been able to throw the ball for nearly 400 yards in a game. They've been dominant at times up front. They're athletic up front. The running backs are good enough. You guys, you've seen Zach Evans before. This guy can play. Max Duggan is battling a foot injury right now that really hindered him on Saturday against Kansas State. But Max Duggan is, and I hate this word, and Smokey, if you use this word to describe Quincy Carter, I'm pulling this word back. but back in the day, but Duggan is a more than serviceable quarterback in the Big 12. He's not just a bus driver. And so I think you've got that. You got a good core of wide receivers that can go up and get the football. So you had what you felt like going into the season was an opportunity here that just sort of petered out because of the defense. And I think there's where your frustration lies. Ultimately that probably is what ends up costing Gary Patterson his job, because he is the defensive coordinator, and you would have hoped that he would have gotten it right, that he was able to solve it and correct it, and it just didn't happen.
All right, so they have Baylor coming in, and they're coming off the win against Texas, and they're playing great under Dave Aranda. Jerry Kill takes over. Dave Aranda coached against him when he was at Minnesota. Aranda was at Wisconsin. You either can get real conservative and keep everything very simple, or you can just throw everything like the kitchen sink because you have nothing to lose. What do you expect?
That's a great question, and that's a good way to put it. Knowing Jerry Kill and knowing his history, you'd have to believe that it's the former. That he goes conservative, that he tries to reduce the number of possessions, that he utilizes that offensive line in his ground game, knowing he's got an injured quarterback, that he tries to keep his defense that is banged up, that it has struggled, that now all of a sudden is going to have a new play caller on defense. You try to keep them off the field as much as you can. I think that if you're asking me to vote, I would vote that would be the way that TCU goes. Now, who's to say that, you got Doug Meacham, who's a gunslinger and calling plays. If Jerry Kill is having to manage the game and not necessarily manage the offense, does that show up on Saturday? And all of a sudden you are throwing verticals, every down. Potentially, you bring the house on defense and try to disrupt the terrific job that Baylor's done on offense this year. Potentially. I just feel like knowing Jerry Kill and knowing his history and knowing what he's up against. Let's face it, guys. This is going to be a tough week. It's going to be a tough week for TCU, concentration-wise. Going to be a tough week motivation-wise. It's going to be a tough week emotion-wise. And so, how do you overcome that? Let's just slow things down. Let's take a deep breath. Let's do what we do and try to do that part well, and see if we can't figure out a way to win on Saturday.
Gary, the Patterson out, TCU head coach. Jerry Kill, the interim head coach. Patterson and Baylor had some wars, man. I mean, from not just Briles, but also in other games as well. So Sonny Dykes, he was there, right, earlier this year in that game. How ironic would that be just for him to switch from one city to the next and stay in Dallas, Fort Worth?
That's a name I haven't heard. No, I'm kidding. That one would be interesting. I mean, Sonny's a guy who has been here at TCU. He was on Gary's staff as an analyst. Obviously, beat the Horned Frogs earlier in the year. He's done a terrific job at SMU. You guys have been around him. It's hard not to like Sonny Dykes. I mean, he's just about the right things. He's a good guy, good family guy. We know high school coaches here in the state of Texas love him, and you got to give him kudos for what he's done playing the portal game at SMU. So, I think I think that would be a qualified candidate. How about that for the TCU job? And I think there are a lot of TCU folks that would be pleased with that one. But I think there's more out there. I do. I think, like we said earlier to start this thing, I think there's a couple of guys that you have to make them tell you no. And so for me, it's kind of like scheduling. When you schedule a non-conference schedule, you try to give yourself a stretch game. One that, hey, let's go off and let's knock off a top 5 team. You give you a game that's kind of a 50-50 game. And then, you got a game that you're going to win. If I'm the athletic director, I got a guy that I'm going to try to talk into the job. That's a real stretch for me. But if I get him, am I set for life? I got my 50-50 guy who I think he'll take it. Might not take it, but I think he'll take it, and he'll be really, really good, really solid. And then I got a guy that I know is going to take the job that would be good as well. And so if I'm the athletic director, that's my final 3. And I would say that I think Sonny would be in that mix.
Brian, thank you, man. Good luck with it all. I know it's a difficult.
Been there.
Yeah.
You know how it is. I mean, it's an emotional time. It's for a lot of folks, who are truly emotionally committed to your program. And isn't that what college football is all about? Being emotionally committed. And once that commitment happens, you allow yourself to be hurt. You allow yourself to be vulnerable, and that's where TCU fans are today. I think they're hurt. Some of them. I think there are some that are ready to turn the page. However, be a small contingent, and maybe it's a larger contingent than I know. I don't know, but there are emotions on both sides of this issue to tell you. Well, I'm not telling you anything you didn't know.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU Athletics, great friend of the show as well. With us on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Yeah, good stuff from Brian there, and very intrigued by the steps that TCU takes in this coaching search and who that big fish that they might have circled might be, or, who's the guy that you make say no and all of that. And, obviously Sonny Dykes' name's going to get brought up, and, even Jeff Traylor with the news yesterday is not going to stop being mentioned. And, I'm curious to know if Jeremiah Donati's anything like Mack Rhodes is. Who's the secret guy? Who's the Matt Rule that nobody's talking about that could be
or Nicky Collin
or Nicky Collin?
I know that's a different sport, but
but not it's the same thing though. Like nobody was talking about Nicky Collin replacing Kim Mulkey, and yet boom, here comes this coach from the WNBA. And so I'm curious to see if they have someone like that up their sleeve, or if it's the more obvious choice in somebody who's close by already. But the world's always just flying by so fast all the time that these major things happen, and we just are like, oh my gosh, and then it's on to the next thing, right? But if you really sit back like I did yesterday after that news dropped and think about the fact that Gary Patterson's out at TCU.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's obvious is what we're talking about, but who had that in mind as this year started? There couldn't have been anybody.
Because I thought they could be, if anyone was going to push for the top level, if someone slipped or if they had things fall their way, that they would be in that conversation along with Oklahoma State to push Iowa State and Oklahoma. And they have just had a disastrous year.
Yeah, and even if they didn't live up to your expectations, you still certainly never thought they'd be as bad as they are.
No, they'd be a team that goes 7-5, beats Texas, because they always do, and they lost that game.
It's shocking, and it's the crazy world of college football for you that's how quickly it can happen.
Speaking of which, each weekend for the rest of the year, there's going to be games that what's going to happen there? There were a few last week. Michigan State comes back. Walker goes nuts. 5 touchdowns. Let's see. Michigan State goes back. They're undefeated. They still have Ohio State coming up down the road. Wake Forest remains undefeated. Let's see here. Auburn beats Ole Miss They're now playing this weekend at College Station against Texas A&M, and what should be and that's one of the things about the SEC. And on occasion, I'll sit there and take a little poke at them. But here you are, you turn around, you win a big game, you play Georgia. Or you turn around, you win a big game, you play Alabama. Or you turn around, win a big game, or you're on your way back, and next thing you know, you're playing Auburn and then Ole Miss back-to-back. It does kind of come at you from different levels and waves as well.
There's definitely a massaging of the polls when it comes to SEC teams that the media does. I don't think there's any denying that. I'm not tinfoil hat guy. It's just obvious when you look at the polls sometimes and how some teams fall. But if you are going to mention that, you can't not mention that, it's also the fact that they do turn around and then play this juggernaut of a schedule, and that plays into it. So I think smart voters take that into account. But, that Michigan State win was awesome. I mean, Kenneth Walker, holy cow. What an all-timer of a performance, and a brutal loss for Michigan, obviously. But, I mean, that was a fight, and I know we got a lot of other things to talk about.
Well, we got a guest coming up in Sam Con. But one thing, Eric on the text line, hey, guys, in Lubbock, all the radio guys right now very high on Joey McGuire. All day, hire McGuire, trending in Red Raider world. Eric in Lubbock. Dave Aranda was asked about Joey McGuire's name popping up a little bit because he mentioned how popular and how much everyone seems to love Joey McGuire. And don't think that his name wouldn't be interested.
If you're not going to get Jeff Traylor and you want a similar kind of person, he and Joey McGuire cut from the exact same cloth nearly. I mean, they're right there on the same kind of wavelength.
Yeah, and as somebody who's covered Joey McGuire in the last few years, love the guy. I think he's awesome. Obviously, Baylor fans probably wish this coaching staff could stay together forever. That's not realistic, and there's going to be a lot of people coming at this coaching staff, I think, this offseason, and I'm sure Joey McGuire is going to be right at the top of that list. So
is Jeff Grimes.
Yeah, so is Jeff Grimes, and I'm sure Eric Mateos will get some calls, and I mean everybody's probably going to be getting phone calls. I mean, that's how successful they've been. So wishing the best for Joey, and I know he wants to be a head coach one day. So cool to see his name getting brought up. I know it's a bummer in Waco, but that you knew this was coming at some point and some time when he was hired years ago. You knew that was going to happen eventually.
When they had the coaching change with Matt Rule, he wanted it and he didn't get it. And Mac Rhodes did a really good job. I'll never forget talking to Joey about it. And then the day he texted me and said, hey, let's go, which means he was staying, but his time is coming. You're about to have, at some point, who knows, in 2 or 3 years, we don't know what's going to happen with UT San Antonio with what Jeff Traylor's accomplished, even with the new extension. Texas State, that's kind of flux. North Texas, TCU, and if TCU gets SMU's head coach, SMU, up and down the spine of 35 in Texas. And on top of that, what's happening in Lubbock. When we come back, Sam Kahn, national writer for theathletic.com, he wrote an article about Gary Patterson, but also he was at the Baylor game against Texas, and that's next on Sikkim 365 Radio. Waco Custom Marketplace, man, they just continue to do great stuff. Chuck roast, $5.50 a pound. This is where you go if you want something for your tailgate. Baylor's on the road at TCU, but if you're having a tailgate and you want product, charcoal, pellet fuel, all of that stuff, by the way, they have it. Cold drinks, cold wine, and even cold beer, and all the other knickknacks and snacks and whatever you need, seasonings up and down the aisle. But they have a butcher shop, tri-tip, brisket, sausage, chicken wings. What you want at your tailgate, they have it, plus the bakery, fresh baked kolaches and bread every single day. Rainbow carrots, just to kind of throw that in there, for $1.10 a pound. Idaho potatoes, 45 cents each. Those perfect for baked potatoes or anything you want to cut up with potatoes. Sirloin steak, $5.75 a pound. I mentioned tri-tip, $4.50 a pound. Bacon ends in pieces, $2.99 a pound. They have German and Cajun sausage, $3.75 a pound. 20% off all the rice. 20% off chili seasonings as the weather gets warmer. At Waco Custom Marketplace, thanks to Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It's Baylor football season, and as always, Berg Colgin Ford supports the green and gold. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. It's time for team celebrations and BU touchdowns. Berg Colgin Ford is your home team when it comes to trucks and tailgates. Ford has the perfect truck for you to host a top-ranked tailgate party. Here's to a winning season for our hometown Bears. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sic 'em Bears.
masters of barbecue, kings of crazy good food, and the perfect sanctuary for sports, beer, and barbecue is Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco and also on Highway 84 in McGregor. A menu filled with choices like a great offensive playbook, including 3 meat combos with sides, burgers, and sandwiches, wings, loaded giant spuds, and salads. Crazy wings, chicken poppers, big boy fries, and smoking quesadillas, just some of their amazing appetizers. There's Coach Big Ol' Draft Beer, or order Zach's Spicy Bloody Mary or Coach's margaritas and mimosas while watching your favorite team play. Great pecan smoked barbecue, fun atmosphere with attention to detail, including a catering menu, and we'll quote your price to fit your budget. Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and walking distance to the great places to shop and enjoy, and also the original location on Highway 84 in McGregor. Great food, great price, great fun. Eat where the locals eat.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So Baylor beats Texas. Sam Conn was there, theathletic.com. He also wrote a lengthy story today on Gary Patterson and his career and eventually out at TCU. But there's a question I asked Abram Smith. This is a young man that when he was at Abilene High, we've told you the story, we've heard from his high school coach. He was not getting offers. Committed originally to Tulsa, Philip Montgomery. Then Baylor kind of got on him, and then there was a coaching change with Briles and his staff eventually out. Joey McGuire played against Abilene when he was at Cedar Hill. So I asked Abram, back when he was in high school, knee injury, no offers, did he ever expect to have this kind of success he's having right now, even an injury early at Baylor as well?
I mean, my mind was set on it. You know, I think I wanted to just be the best that I can possibly be. So even with the injuries and everything that came with it, I knew I had a goal and I wanted to be I wanted to go to the next level. I wanted to come here, so I just kept working and working for it. So back then when I didn't have really anybody, I mean, I had my family, So they kept me straight and they kept me going, and that's why I am where I am now.
I love the way he answered that question. That's Abram Smith. They added 32 yards to his total Saturday because it was one of those they flip it back to him. They counted it initially as a pass. It ended up being added to his 100-plus yards against Texas, including a scintillating touchdown run. Sam Kahn was there, theathletic.com. We will get into his column today about Gary Patterson. But, Sam, you saw Baylor firsthand. Up front, your thoughts about what you saw with Dave Aranda's team?
Really impressed by the growth and maturity this team showed in circumstances in the second half, down by double digits. I never really, at any point in that game, even when they were down, thought this team was going to lose, in part because Texas has struggled in the second half, but also because just the flow of the game offensively, the way I thought they called it. Jeff Grimes, I thought, did a great job on the call. Even with the turnovers with Bohannon, I think this team is mature. It's confident. You see how much experience there is all over the field. The team is littered with guys that were on that 2019 team, and they play that way. They play poised. They play confident. There was no panic. And when they start getting a roll in the second half and they got those 3 straight touchdown drives, I wasn't shocked in the league. They've done that a lot this year, where they've kind of gotten on a roll and gotten in a rhythm. And when they do, boy, they're hard to stop. I think this is definitely one of the best teams in the Big 12.
Sam, what do you think is the reason for Texas's second half problems?
I think it's a multifaceted thing. I think psyche is part of it. Steve Sarkisian has alluded to that. And I think at this point, I think it is mental. But I also think it's simply personnel. I just don't think Texas is there talent-wise, regardless of the recruiting rankings, which have been good and were good in the Tom Herman era. I don't look at that team, and I've seen a lot of teams around the state and a few others around the country. I don't look at Texas and see elite talent up and down the roster. I see a few elite players. I think Bijan Robinson's an elite player. I think David Boyd is an elite player. I think Marvin Overshown's really good. Josh Thompson, the corner's really good. I don't see across the line of scrimmage a bunch of difference makers on offense or defense. I thought Baylor's offensive and defensive lines were better and have been better than Texas. It starts and ends right there. And if you're not good up front on offense, if you're not good up front on defense, it's hard to win a lot of ball games, and it's hard to outlast teams. You can only win with smoke and mirrors for so long.
Sam, I know that Texas was able to hit some big plays and could have hit more, quite frankly, if things would have worked out better for them. But what did you think with Bijan Robinson heading into the weekend? He was less than 100 yards away from 1,000, and I wrote in an article, like, he's almost assuredly going to get close to 100 yards this weekend. That's what he does every week. He ends up with just 43. What did you make of that?
I was really surprised because if there's one thing this offense has been able to count on, it's been him. But credit to Ron Roberts and the Baylor defense for what they did schematically against him. And also, I think you give a lot of credit to Apu because I watched them a lot, and they were double teaming and triple teaming a lot. And guess what? It's hard to run up the middle with a 350-pound guys getting double and triple teamed in the middle. So it makes it hard to find holes. And that's where a presence like that in the middle becomes such a value for defense because it requires so many offensive guys. So you cannot attack in the middle of the line of scrimmage in between the tackles. You've got to go on that perimeter, and that's why they threw the ball a lot. And give Baylor credit for their game plan. And also, I think Sarkisian at times, especially in these last few weeks, and certainly in the second half, has gotten away from Bijan. I don't know how that's happened from a play calling standpoint, but definitely against Oklahoma State, and a little bit against Baylor at the stretch. It seems like as the game wears on, they kind of get away from Bijan. And the last week, I think it was understandable, but the previous 2 weeks, he was pretty successful in the first and second quarter. So I'm not sure why that is, but it's a multitude of things that led to that, in my opinion.
Sam, you've covered Baylor before, and you've heard Dave Aranda before, but you were there for the post game after the win against Texas. Your thoughts about any references to the Berenstain Bears, to yellow and green lights like a traffic light on what you saw from him? A lot of national writers, when they've come in, they walk away with a smile on their face with what they hear from him.
I love Dave because he's always going to give you something different that no one else in this country will. The green light, red light thing, yellow light, I've heard before because we talked about that when I visited him in the spring in his office.
Mm-hmm.
But the Berenstain Bears, that is absolutely, in my 17-year career covering college football, first time I've heard a Berenstain Bears reference in a press conference. And you know what? The way he broke it down, it wasn't like I'm just going to throw this book reference out. Like, no, I'm actually going to go through the story. You can tell he sat there and read it to his children. So, I mean, that's impressive. As someone who I read to my kid every night before bed, I can certainly appreciate somebody who knows the story and can recite it quite that well on a document.
Sam, TCU, open for the first time in 21 years. Gary Patterson's out. You can kind of feel the heat getting hotter on him just on the different rants he went on week to week and the way that they were playing, not only offensively but defensively. How surprised were you by this, and who do you see as a natural fit to take over that job?
I was surprised by the timing. Not necessarily that it was heading that way, but I certainly didn't expect to get a message and a phone call last night, yesterday evening, saying that Gary Patterson's departure was about to be announced. I certainly thought it would have been an end-of-season thing if it happened this year. And I also thought Patterson would have a little bit of a say in the end of his tenure, but clearly that wasn't the case. There was just a multitude of issues that were present there. And I think the biggest one you hit on it is defense. The one thing you've always been able to count on in a Gary Patterson TCU team is a great defense. And boy, they have been bad on that side of the ball this year. They haven't been able to rush the passer effectively. They've been beat up. They've had guys play out of position because of injuries. They haven't been able to stop teams. They've been one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. They've been one of the worst defenses, period. They're in the bottom 20, 30 in the nation in yards per play, in scoring defense, you name it. So it's been really unfortunate to see how they trend on that side of the ball, because I look at the roster and I look at the talent, and to me, they're one of the most talented teams in the conference. And I think when you guys see them on Saturday, you watch their guys run around, they are a supremely talented team. But it did not translate on the field, and I think the downward trajectory of the last 4 years, they haven't been a great team. They haven't competed for the Big 12 title like they had early on in their time in the conference, or competed for conference titles like they did early on in Gary Patterson's tenure before they entered the Big 12. It's not been going in the right direction. And in this day and age, when you have an uncertain future in the Big 12, the conference is going to be without Texas and Oklahoma. You've got to kind of establish yourself. I think Jeremiah Donati and TCU leadership decided, hey, we've got to right the ship somehow. And I know for some people it's tough to push out a legend that's taken them to unprecedented heights, but certainly they felt like something had to change.
So, Sam, you are known as the Texpert over at The Athletic, the Texas expert. You cover all the Texas schools, and, man, you have not had any shortage of storylines. I mean, the Gary Patterson one, but you look at what's going on, just the coaching carousel, and what could happen if, just let's say Dykes moves to TCU or to Texas Tech, and then what that means for other jobs. Just what do you make of the kind of wild landscape in the state right now?
Yeah, I thought coming into the season, I thought maybe we might have one or two jobs open. Maybe Texas Tech, maybe North Texas opened. But I certainly didn't anticipate we'd have two before November 1st. and then we probably could have more at the end of the season. I think, keep an eye on North Texas, keep an eye on Texas State. And then if, like you said, if Sonny Dykes moves on to one of these two open Power 5 jobs in the state, SMU will open up. So it could be a very, very eventful, silly season in the state of Texas this fall. Certainly not quite what I envisioned, but I'm ready for it. I've spent a lot of time on the phone the last couple of weeks. I anticipate I'm going to spend a lot of time on the phone in the next month plus. But it's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned Dykes. I think I think either one of those jobs, Tech or TCU, would be a good fit. Obviously, he's got the ties to Texas Tech. His dad coached there. Sonny's an alum, played baseball there. He's been an assistant there under Mike Leach in the heyday. But TCU is a really attractive job, too, with its location, facilities, financial resources, you name it, what they've been built to be because of Gary Patterson's success. That is a really attractive job in the Big 12. And Sonny's been there. He spent the time there as a support staffer with Gary Patterson before he took the SMU job. So that would be a natural fit if he decided to go that way. I could see him doing well in either one of those two spots.
Sticking with that carousel and coaching talk, your thoughts on Jeff Traylor and the announcement from UTSA yesterday?
Really impressed by UTSA. I did not know that they had the wherewithal to pay a coach $2.8 million. I think a lot of people assumed that Traylor would be a hot candidate for the Texas Tech job, which he was definitely one of their top targets. And with the TCU job opening, he would have been a candidate for that as well. But Traylor, and I visited with him over the course of this last month, he seems very happy there because he is kind of the king of his own kingdom there in San Antonio. He doesn't get much interference from his athletic director or president. They trust him. He kind of runs the things the way they want it. He's got a new conference that they're going into, which is going to be a little bit of a step up for UTSA. That's a little bit of an appeal. And I think just being there 2 years, it feels like that he's got some unfinished business. I think I don't know that he'll be there forever, but I think he may be waiting for an even bigger job than the ones that are open right now. And in the meantime, I think he's happy if you're able to pay him what they're paying him, which is not too far off what Texas Tech was paying Matt Wells. They were paying Matt Wells $3.1 million. So if you're able to have a competitive salary, you're happy, you run the program the way you want it. They're building facilities, they're committed to improvement in the program, and you've got kids that buy into you and believe in you. Hey, there's nothing wrong with being happy and staying where you are. So looks like I think he'll be there for at least another year or two, and then I guess we'll see if they continue to succeed at the level that they are right now. Schools are not going to stop calling and sniffing around at Jeff Traylor.
Jeff Traylor today at 4:30 here. Dave Aranda coming up next. Sam's tweet last night. This was late last night after a long day. Heather Dinich put up what might end up being the college football standings. And Sam goes, if a 13-0 Cincinnati with a road win at Notre Dame gets left out of the playoff in favor of a bunch of one-loss Power 5 teams, I will riot.
Well, hey, a lot of TCU and Baylor fans are already warning Cincy fans about how this goes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, they know how it goes. I mean, here's the thing. If we want to say that these Group of 5 programs and college athletics leadership wants to say that the FBS, the Football Bowl subdivision, is all one division and everybody has a chance, then to me, a 13-0 Cincinnati, who, by the way, will have a win over a good SMU team and probably a pretty good Houston team in the conference championship game if Cincinnati indeed goes 13-0, that combined with a win over what right now is a top 12 Notre Dame team, I don't see why that resume is not good enough, in my opinion. And I look at a team like Oklahoma, and no offense to Oklahoma, but they don't have a win as good as Notre Dame on their slate right now. Their combined FBS opponent's record is worse, and winning percentage is worse than that of Cincinnati's at this moment. Now, they'll have a chance. Oklahoma will have a chance to get some better wins because they've got Baylor and Oklahoma State on the back end. But I just don't like the different way we evaluate these teams based on what conference they're in or what their logo is or what their name is. Just tell me what has happened on the field. What has that team looked like on the field? And yes, Cincinnati the last 2 weeks hasn't looked great, but before that, their first 5-6 games, they have been, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the country. And so if they continue to do that, and you're going to give other teams a pass for losing a game while you dock Cincinnati for struggling against Tulane, which, by the way, Oklahoma did too, to me, it's just an uneven evaluation and an unfair playing field. And to me, if we're going to do that, then let's just separate the divisions completely. Allow the Group of 5 to have its own playoff. Allow the Power 5 to have its own playoff. Let's do it that way, and let's stop pretending that we're really having an equitable system where everybody has a real shot. This is why I think a 12-team playoff expansion is sorely needed in the college football landscape.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Sam Conn, good to see you. Get some rest, man. I saw that bottle of Samuel Adams in front of your laptop. That was 17 hours ago, so let me see. That was at midnight. Is that right?
Yeah, I needed it, and I will tell you I'm going to bed early tonight.
You've earned it, buddy. Good to see you Saturday. Good job on the column. Thanks for being a part of the show. That's Sam Conn, Jr., theathletic.com.
Just saw that Jeremiah Donati is going to speak to the media tomorrow. I didn't see a time for it, but that will be his first public comments and I guess time in front of the media since the news yesterday, obviously, with Patterson's exit. So we will get some TCU AD talk tomorrow at some point.
All right, the chat room, we have not been able to read much of it, but we're watching and love it. Appreciate you. A lot of you on many things, from Gary Patterson to UCF people wanting to say, hey, we're a part of the Big 12 now. We love how this conference is together.
Look at the Big 12. Look at the new Big 12 in the rankings right now. Look at the new Big 12 over the weekend. What's going on here?
Yeah.
I like it. Cincy's representing. BYU got a big win. I watched that game till what felt like 4 o'clock in the morning, even though it was not that late. But, you know, Tyler Algiers, another big performance. Jaron Hall looked good. BYU had to rally a bit, and that was a nice win. So, yeah, I mean, UCF gets a big win, and yeah, let's go Big 12, new Big 12.
Houston?
Yeah, and obviously, gosh almighty, Houston with a massive win. That unbelievable ending. I mean, the kick return touchdown, just an improbable
Did you know
play.
that guy has 9 returns?
Yeah, 9. They said it during the play-by-play.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, he's got 9 touchdowns. Like, make it 10 or whatever they said.
I would have kicked it straight out of bounds. Even if it went out of bounds at the 38-yard line, I'm kicking it straight out of bounds in that situation.
But you look at all four of the new teams, and they're either in the top 25 or flirting with it. And that's great. That's awesome.
Good to see. And SMU, a tough loss for them. And now they have to themselves deal with the possibility of what happens with their coach. All right, when we come back, my conversation with Baylor head football coach Dave Aranda on many things, sometimes much more than just football, which I enjoy when I get a chance to visit with him. And that's next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. Well, we've been telling you about the issues going on around car dealerships across this country, computer chip shortages. You've had to have heard about those by now, and the fact that computer chip shortages are wreaking havoc on inventory when it comes to new cars and trucks on lots all over America. Well, there has been a negative effect. There's no doubt about that. Worldwide, not just in this country. But the good news is GM announced a couple weeks back that they're restarting production, and they'll have a steady flow of vehicles being released throughout the fall. So rest assured that cars and trucks are coming, and so now is the time to contact Richard Carr to get your name on a new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac as they are being shipped. You can drive a new car or truck sooner when you get on Richard Carr's Choose Your Inbound Vehicle list, and you can get your car or truck first as they arrive. If you're looking to drive and save today, Richard Carr's also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks. Each one of them goes through a 172-point inspection before hitting the lot, and when dozens of lenders, Richard Carr says yes when others say no, as 100% credit approval is always their goal. So go online or come by for a test drive today. So you do have the option with the pre-owns, but you also have the new vehicles as well. Make sure you get your name on that Choose Your Inbound Vehicle list to be first in line for the new line of GMCs or the lineup of Buick SUVs, or of course the Cadillacs like the XT6 or the Escalade. And here in the greater Waco area, Richard Carr's your local hometown dealership. Give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. Richard Carr Motors, owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Hey guys, sports betting season is in full force with football season entrenched and the NBA and NHL underway and the Major League Baseball playoffs. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity like BetUS.com. BetUS has been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That's BetUS.com, and they have loads of bonuses like ours at BetUS.com. 125% bonus on promo code SICK'EM125 or a 200% bonus if you use crypto on promo code SICK'EM200. BetUS, known as America's favorite sportsbook. NFL, college football, MLB, UFC, PGA Golf, they've got it all at BetUS.com. So go to BetUS.com today and use promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200. That's BetUS.com, promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
End around trick play, looking to pass, and into the end zone for a touchdown as Thornton goes to Snead. Tyquan Thornton with a touchdown pass to R.J. Snead.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach, with me on Sikkim 365 Radio. What are the challenges the week before when you have to face an interim head coach?
I think it is focus of your team. I think it's number one, and then I think number two, it would be what unknowns are you seeing? Do things kind of get simplified and reduced, or do things get do things explode and go out? And so I think there's still work to do on that phase of it. I would think that things come in and get simplified. But I think the most important is the piece that we can control, and that's just our motivation, our focus. And it's really no different than what it's been throughout our entire process. And it's keeping it on, making our standard daily, a real strong expectation.
You know Jerry Kill. You coached against him when you were at Wisconsin, and you know of him as well. Does that help a little bit or not?
Yeah, it does. I think he is simple. I think he is basic and fundamental. I think he's a ball coach. And so I think, my anticipation with that would be that they're going to try to do simple better. But, I think for us, that is going to be kind of our through our coordinator's vein of along with my help, but really kind of making it so where we can focus with our players as much on the outside in terms of their technique and their schemes as with the inside, and that's their motivation and their focus and then kind of their internal drive.
Your thoughts about what you said about Gary Patterson in the media session, defense, respect from you because of what he's done, and kind of like almost how much you respect what he is as a defensive mind?
Yeah, I think, just coming up with him. So when I was kind of coming up, Gary Patterson, that's when he first started to be the guy. And I think, the way that he looked at defense, or he started to look at defense then, and it became more fashionable after him. He was really one of the first, was to look at defense as you would be on offense, as calling 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 a defense, call out the front, call out the linebackers, call out the secondary, and each in the call give them a job description where they're not necessarily tied to each other, right? By the call, it's all individually pieced like a sentence where they can go out and really create havoc and be way, way multiple. And I think at that time, that was something, you would, like if we were to go on Google right now, we could type up, West Coast offensive play names, right? And pull up some long play names where they describe what everybody's doing on everything. And Gary was the first on defense that was really doing that in college at a real high level. And so I think that thing just took off. And then just from there, just his techniques of playing three backs and playing spread sets and playing no huddle and just all of it, just way forward thinker.
I'm one of those that remembers things that I'm not trying, but I saw one day you had your book open, your calendar. You have the tiniest handwriting, but it's the neatest from top to bottom of every day. How methodical are you with that?
Pretty strong. I think, that's probably the only part of my life that I can control is that book right there. And so I take some pride in that. But I think like a lot of that comes from the early morning, which is one of my favorite times because you go through kind of I think every day, every morning you've got yourself a new team. And so it gives me the ability to kind of, where people's hearts are at or what happened yesterday and how I can help, or am I getting in the way, or which player needs to be seen, what needs to be said, right? Where are we falling below the standard, below the line? We need to recognize someone because they're way achieving high and they're doing it in the dark, and we need to give them some light. And so I think like all of those things happen in the morning with that schedule, and I think without having that time, you would not be as intentional as you could.
People who know me, I have a reminder to remind myself of a sticky note that might remind me of an alarm that goes off in my phone. It's kind of like a cross-check just to make sure. Hidden yardage. Both teams did a great job with special teams because both dynamic returners. But Rauschenberg with the constant touchbacks. Isaac, when he punted. The coverage teams. How proud are you right now? Hankins, the story out of nowhere. How proud are you of what they're doing as a group? Really strong. I think they're, I give Coach Powledge a lot of credit. I think there is really, really strong buy-in to special teams and how they influence a game and playing complementary football. And so I think, the ability to contribute on that squad, not only from guys that maybe are not seeing a lot of time and want to get on the field, but guys that are starters and guys that are seeing a lot of time but want to be on this unit because it's going to help the team. I think like there's complete buy-in from all sides of it, and I think when you have that, and then I think with Powell, the ability to keep it simple, the ability to put playmakers in the best position to succeed and stress fundamentals, good things happen. What does it say about you and your staff, though? You found Hankins out of nowhere, basically, I think Arkansas, and what he's done. And then also when you made the decision to look for a running back for the offense in the Abram Smith story with, Joey McGuire played against him and Coach Wetzel knew of him and so did others. What does that say that you guys have been able to find those diamonds and what they're doing? Yeah, I think it's more, it's the guys, and I think it's seeing people first. I think it's, I think it is, being, it's as a coach, just not getting in the way of not getting an ego to where it becomes, if you're in a thing, it becomes now another thing. It's putting all that you have into them as people so that they feel like, I can believe in myself, or, I can give everything I got and ain't no one gonna come across me or come at me like this or that. I think when there is that type of environment, and that's players and coaches both, right, where it's like the team is first,
then I think you can really have a lot of growth. And I think we're still in the process of that.
You mentioned when the interceptions were brought up about playing green or playing yellow. What were you saying?
Yeah, so the stoplight. So I think there's a fair amount of. I look at it just in life. I think like green would be your authentic self, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like totally, like not trying to be somebody you're not trying to perform or act your way through a thing. Just really feeling confident about who you are, and you bring your identity into every room you go, as opposed to going into a room and taking the identity of every room that you walk into. And that would be playing green. And I think on the football field, that would be, playing full speed, right? No, courage over any form of comfort where I'm kind of holding back, right? Putting yourself out there. Yellow would be, if it's life, it would be, I got this job because it pays some money, and I don't necessarily like the people here, and I'm kind of doing it just to get by. I'm gonna get another job, or I'm every morning I got to put on this face and be this for someone, and I don't even know. And yellow in football would be, I don't really know. I think I'm supposed to do this. I'm gonna try. I'm kind of halfway in, halfway out. Right. When times get tough, I kind of make it up. Right. So yellow is kind of pumping the brakes, seeing if it's safe. Can you be you? Can you not? And red would be, palms up. Red would be, transfer portal, fisticuffs. It would be, blow-ups. It would be, breakups.
Speaking of that, and I think it was amazing, you brought this up. This is a picture of the Berenstain Bears books, and you brought this up.
It's a bad decision.
No, it was fantastic.
Really
old hat, new hat, when you're talking about things you're comfortable with or things you're trying to find. First of all, I think the book sales exploded over the weekend.
Oh, man.
I had to ask you about that. That's just that. For someone like me,
Yeah.
You didn't like You didn't like that?
No, I think it's.
It made sense.
Yeah, it's something I've always been able to look at. I've always seen how stuff connects, and so, I remember that book, and I just feel like I remember as a coordinator, I loved the old hat, and so there'd be, but you would have to. It wasn't so much the new hat you were getting. There would be times you would get the new hat. It was more about the Berenstain Bears search. That's really what it is, and if you're true to that, and you ask the right questions, and you go through the search the right way, and you get to the old hat, then that's where it's supposed to be. If you're true to the search, and you ask the right questions, and you're honest with yourself, right, and you take input from other parties, other people that are in the room with you, and that leads you to a new hat, then so be it. But I think you have to recognize that the search is important and spend time doing that. And I think sometimes, so that's the focus on the process again.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people focus on where they're, what they're trying to get to, and they miss it.
I thought it was brilliant. I did. Speaking of searches, you had brought up a couple weeks ago, the question was asked about your name out there, and Joey's name today, and then Gary Patterson, and now what they're doing. Are agents involved in telling coaches what they can say? Like Mike Tomlin, I don't know if you saw what he said. He said, never say never, but never. He was very angry about his name coming up. He's coaching the Steelers. They've had 3 coaches in forever. Is that something that is, how is that you, because you gave an answer that you love it here at Baylor. Grant Teaff told me today that you are a perfect fit for Baylor and that you're not one that's going to be looking around. How do coaches go about having to answer that? And does it get to be kind of tiresome?
No, I think I think it is part and parcel. I think whether, either way, if you're losing, there's going to be stuff, and if you're winning, there's going to be stuff. And so, I think, you'd rather have this stuff, I guess. But, for me, like, the opportunity to grow as a person is really, I think I said it last week, I talk more now in a day than I probably did in a week at LSU. And that's kind of embarrassing to say, but that's the truth. And so I think like the growth, and I think what Baylor provides is seeing people, spiritual growth, value in who you are as a person, and interpersonal relationships, treat people the right way, class, integrity. And those are all things that just, like what Coach Teaff was saying, they fit with how I believe. And so I think it's a growth in that space. I think for almost becoming a machine at LSU, for example, just as an assistant coach, which is football. And then, I think you and I have talked before about the stresses and how that can push you to extremes. And I think, I remember when we were recruiting Apu, he wanted to get on the phone with me, and I wanted to get on the phone with him, and we're talking, and I could tell there was some kind of awkwardness on the phone. And I go, "You're probably wondering what it's like with me as a head coach." And he goes, "Yeah, man, I don't even know." So it's like, so I said, I appreciate that, man. I can see why, And so we talked about all that, and I think it's just like the growth. I think so. The growth as a person, that's the thing. I think the stuff as a coach, I think, is all just that's just a byproduct of it. So I think like the more. I don't know, people would probably call them soft skills, but those soft skills do hard things, way hard things. And I think the better you are with those skills, like empathy, right, being transparent, selflessness, communication, like listening to understand, all of those things I think have been way strong for me here. And those things I've always believed there, or wherever I've been, but have always just never grown. And so I think the growth is over everything.
And so you love it here, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you ever talk to Coach Teaff about being the next Grant Teaff, like what he meant to this school?
Yeah, I couldn't even think like that. That'd be crazy. But I know like Coach Teaff was just more than football. He was just so. What he meant as a mentor, what he meant, as a father, what he meant as a leader, and now that I'm here at Baylor, I can see, so much of that was him, but I could see the support, and I can see the outside influences that can make something like that happen, because it's special.
One final thing, your record's 9-8. Remember when I asked you last year, did you ever think about it's your name with 2-7 or what was 1 whatever it was? And I know there's a lot of bigger goals ahead of you, but 9-8, that's your record now, and it used to be a big hole that you were under.
Yeah, I think, never really look at the record. I think, looking at, the routine, the different team that you have basically every day, and trying to be real with what's real. I think like those are the things, whereas I think like last year, finding a lot out about myself, finding a lot about our players more or less every day, and not having the expectations a lot of times set to where I know enough about me so that I could say this about you, right? And so there is a space where, hey man, I'm going to love you, but to do that, this is where this has to be, where I can still love myself. I think so much of that was the story of last year, and I think coming to grips really with who I am, and then knowing our players, and for them to really see me, I think has allowed, right, a daily process that where guys can just be themselves, man, and kind of give to the team. And I think, through all that, man, that record can go here or there, but you feel fulfilled though, right? Because you feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and your heart feels good. So from there, everything is good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach on Sikkim 365 Radio. All right, when we come back, we'll have Jeff Traylor from UT San Antonio, the Roadrunners head coach, and the new contract extension he received. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, early start on the Black Friday sales event going on right now at the dealership. New 2021 Ram 1500 Lone Star, the Ram winner of the prestigious J.D. Power Initial Quality. 1500 Lone Star cab offering style and dependability for any job you want. Black sales event going on right now at the dealership at Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Also, the Dodge brand finished second in that prestigious J.D. Power's quality study. Also, the 2021 Jeep Gladiator rated first among all mid-sized trucks. Get an early start on the Black Friday sales event going on right now at Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84. Come by, let's be friends.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line. When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to gencofcu.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Brad Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show. Necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
All right, here we go with this 4 o'clock hour. Jeff Traylor, head football coach at UT San Antonio, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and a great friend of the show. So, congratulations.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Does this slow everything down, calm everything down? People now leave you alone or not?
I hope so. I hope by Wednesday we're kind of done with this kind of stuff. I just don't want my players having to answer it anymore. We've been working on this, President Amy and Dr. Compost, since this summer. You don't just come up with a 10-year contract over the weekend, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into those things. There's a lot of facility upgrades. There's coaches increases on my assistants. There's added personnel. There's food for my players in the weight room and those kind of particular things for nutrition. So I was just tired of my players having to answer it. It's probably not the best business decision in the world, but it's the best for my players. And that's, you know me well enough, David, that's I'm going to always try to make my decisions.
Did others make it really hard on you because there's coaching opportunities elsewhere? Did it make it difficult? Like you said, it wasn't maybe your best business decision. How hard was that?
This is about my players. And this is about UTSA. This is about President Amy, Dr. Compost. This is about my wife and I loving the community. And that's all this was about. I mean, it just so happens that any time a job comes up in the state of Texas, it happened last year. It's happening again this year. My name's probably going to be in it. And the only people that are ever going to know the truth about what really happened is me and whatever the other party is that people are talking about. So this is about my kids, David, and me wanting to get ready for UTEP next week.
All right.
Is there something to be said in that, look, any coach can go and try to climb the ladder anytime something comes open, but of doing, and look, we've seen it here in Waco. Scott Drew set down roots, and he isn't even budged from Waco, and making something your program and not having to worry about, what's my resume look like each year as the season ends.
I'm just not real big on listening to people's words, right? I like to see what they've done. And, I've stayed put for 15 years. And we told people we were going to stay there as long as we possibly could. We wanted to build that thing. And when I left it, I wanted to leave it in my guys' hands. And I wanted them to continue to do what we had done there. You got to remember now, we started there in 2000. Our press box was condemned. We built some deer stands, and we coached out of deer stands. And now when you go back to Buckeye Stadium, that thing doesn't have deer stands. I mean, you got facilities, girl facilities, new high school, new elementary, softball, baseball, junior high. People want to believe. They want to give to something that's greater than themselves. Football has that unique ability to bring all of us together. Religion, race, color, doesn't matter. You're all road runners or you're all Buckeyes, whatever your team is you choose to be, the Bears in Waco, you're all in with them.
Coach, I know you're focused on the Miners right now, and they're a good football team, but I do want to mention that video that was put out there yesterday of you and President Amy also letting the team know of the contract extension. Saw a little bit of that celebration on their faces. What was that moment like for you, and what was their response like?
One of the highlights of my career. I was afraid they might boo that man. I didn't know. Dr. Compost asked me why I did not have our video team in there. And I'm like, I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't really know if I wanted it recorded, right? But luckily, a couple of people had their cell phones out, and they got it. And it just meant the world to me. The reason I got that contract was those 115 players. Without those 115 players, that kind of stuff doesn't happen.
Jeff Traylor with us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. So let me ask you this. When you go through what you're going through, the success you're having, it all started somewhere. It started for you at Big Sandy High School with Brad McGinnis, and then Danny Long at Jacksonville. How much do you reflect back? I know you got to look forward. How much, when I bring that up, do you kind of get maybe emotional or even goosebumps?
Well, you know me, I get emotional. The older I get, the worse I get. I mean, it's almost embarrassing how easy it is to make me cry nowadays. But, getting texts from all those people means the world to me. I mean, Danny, Coach Long sent me a text literally that said, Jeff, after I saw that video of your kids, when you told them, it reminded me of the kids in Jacksonville when I see you drive them all home after practice in your Camaro. Those same kids, I mean, they're all the same, and they all want to be coached really, really hard, and they want to be loved harder. And if you can coach them and love them, you can win a lot of ball games with great athletes.
Coach, I got to tell you, the first thing I thought when I saw the news of a 10-year contract extension, I thought, oh, good, he can buy a couch that he's allowed to sit on.
Yeah.
At least I can afford the cover, maybe cover it up so I can sit on it. Hey, let me tell you something. I'll tell you some good news. She was gone. My baby girl, JC, is studying abroad in Italy right now. I say studying very loosely. I think she's traveling abroad. And Carrie went over there to be with her for 10 days. Then she came back, and Jordan, is with the Saints right now. They played the Buccaneers yesterday. So she went and stayed the weekend with Jordan. And I've had the house to myself for 2 weeks. And it's just been blissful just being able to lay on that couch and leave my shoes wherever I want to, man.
You can't say that. What are you doing?
That was a good win for the Saints, by the way.
Yeah, it was a nice win for the Saints, yeah.
By the time she comes home, David, I'm a veteran. I'll have that thing cleaned up. I'll have it spotless. Just anybody that's listening, don't let Care Bear know that I violated some of her couch rules.
Well, speaking of that, when she gets back, are you ever going to get that swimming pool done?
It's done. It's done, and she's gone. I've been in it. She's by myself. She's been in Italy, and she's been in New Orleans, and I'm just living the high life back there by myself.
Oh, my God. You're going to be sleeping on that couch, by the way.
No. You're quality control, Coach.
Yeah,
Somebody had to go in and test it to make sure that when she gets back, it's okay.
Right, yeah. It's been awesome. It's been awesome. But I did miss you, Care Bear. I did miss you.
Hey, Coach, not having a game this weekend, obviously there were some other things going on that you were taking care of, but what was it like to have that little bit of a break before you hit this stretch run? And now looking at a UTEP team that, has had a pretty good year. I mean, Jacob Cowing's a receiver that I've had my eye on. He's a great playmaker. It seems like the Miners have a good thing going now at 6-2. I know they're coming off of a loss, but your thoughts on getting to catch your breath a little bit if you did, and now preparing for a solid UTEP team?
We didn't tackle Louisiana Tech very well, and we looked like a tired football team. So this week we padded up now. We were full pads Tuesday and Wednesday. We tackled and blocked, and we didn't do any type of team. We went back to old school, just fundamentals. And we tried to get our kids fresh by giving them, Friday and Saturday off. And we were full pads last night, and we got after it again. If we want to make this thing of November to remember, that triangle up, as we always talk about it, we got to be about it now. We got to get back to tackling better and blocking better and just taking care of the football and being a fundamental football team. So that was our focus of the week. UTEP is very good, to your point. Dana's done a great job getting those guys going. And we're going to have our hands full in the Sun Bowl at 9:15 on national TV Saturday night.
Yeah, that's awesome. We had Dana on the show a couple of weeks ago. They, of course, bowl eligible for the first time in a long time. And there's so much going on, Jeff, in college football right now. The transfer portal, of course, has been around now for a couple of years. The NIL, realignment, I know you kind of were able, hey, that's the president and AD, let them handle that, and they did soon after that. How much is too much right now outside of just coaching your football team?
Well, that's where it's all at. I mean, you got to be there. And that's what we talk about with our team all the time. It sounds like coach talk, but today was our academic day. We had to be the very best we could be in academics. You play exactly the way you practice. If you want to play great Saturday night, then practice great Tuesday, practice great Wednesday, practice great Thursday, practice great Friday. That recipe has worked for a long, long time. It's just, can you get your kids to stay focused during that time? And we're a very, very mature football team. We're senior-led. Our single-digit guys have tremendously bought into our culture, and they've done a great job of holding us accountable in practice.
Jeff Traylor, head coach at UT San Antonio, with us. The Roadrunners going against UTEP, as he mentioned, on the road coming up this Saturday night on ESPN2. You went to Gilmer, your alma mater, and we know the story with what you did, winning state championships and taking them to a level and basically taking over that area for a long, long time. You coached at your alma mater. What's more difficult, doing that or trying to build this program you're doing now at UT San Antonio?
That's a great question. It's just different, but it's the same. What I mean by different but the same, it's just the massive energy that it takes, convincing people how important it is, convincing players that it's worth it. That's where it's the same. Where it's different, there are just so many people that I love deeply and dearly that I've known forever in Gilmer. My teachers, Sunday school teachers, preachers, deacons, former players, just, classmates. That was tough. Here, I had to, convince them that I was just a good human first. And maybe in Gilmer, I was trying to convince them I still wasn't that bad human that I used to be. So that's where it's different. But it, I still love ball and coaching and people. And it's really fun when you can try to get this thing going in the right direction, David.
Last thing, Jeff, do you sometimes get tired of the attention? Or is this something that because you're getting it means the program's doing it right?
That's exactly what it is. I hate doing it. I really do. I know people don't believe that because I love to talk, but I don't like the attention. I don't. I really wish there's a way you could do this without it being that way. So we know the deal, right? That's just part of the deal. And I know if I do this and I'm talking to you, that somebody out there is listening, and maybe one grandmother's listening to me and goes, you know what? I want my baby to play for that man. And he might end up coming down here. So it's worth it. I've got great coordinators right there right now, game planning. We'll get to have a staff meeting at 5 o'clock. We'll get out of here late tonight. Whenever you take time away from your football, you just got to get it back somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that means your workout might be shorter. You might not be able to get lunch. Your sleep might be less. And as long as I've got this energy, David, and I feel this good, I'm going to keep burning at both ends.
I know you will. Hey, Axum Jacks,
Coach.
good luck to Birds Up. Big Sandy, Jacksonville, Gilmer High School native, and now, of course, head coach at UT San Antonio. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it every time. Thanks, Jeff. Good, congratulations.
Congrats to y'all, man. What a great job Coach Aranda's done. What a great win with those guys Saturday. Happy for you guys, too, David. Thank y'all. God bless. Birds up.
You, too. Thank you so much. Gets emotional when you think about where he started as an assistant coach, home to Coach McGinnis at Big Sandy. I mentioned yesterday on Twitter, he started as an SFA guy, and then I thought his first job, I forgot, was at Jacksonville under Danny Long, who, Craig, you knew him as well. But it was at Big Sandy under Brad McGinnis, and here he is. Remember, he went to Texas under Charlie Strong. That didn't work out. Then he's at SMU with Chad Morris. That didn't work out. Goes to Arkansas with Chad Morris. He was up for that SFA job. Colby Carthel got the job. He's an alum, Jeff is. That hurt, even though Colby's doing a great job at SFA, and now look what he's doing now at the University of Texas, San Antonio.
Yeah, he was this close to being a Baylor assistant under Matt Rule as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that was very close to happening and just didn't quite, work out ultimately. But, yeah, his rise has been, definitely something to be impressed with, and just the different experience he's been able to accumulate and now turn it in, to being able to have the opportunity to run a program and then to do with it what he's doing with it to the point to where just a short amount of time, UTSA's in the top 25, and now you've got, colleges across the state. And I would imagine, the more this goes on across the country, taking notice and being interested in his services. And, I thought, I didn't want to predict what Jeff Traylor might do when it came to like some of these jobs opening up and whatnot. But when I did see that news come across about him and UTSA and the contract extension, I just thought that was awesome, because so often it is, guys just taking that next opportunity, just climbing. And it's very rare where you see somebody who decides, like, I'm not going to take every single opportunity, and strike every single time that there's a chance to. There's something to be said for sticking around and continuing to build, and I like that he's going to be doing that in San Antonio for a while longer. They're relevant, and they, I know Larry Coker had some success early, and they had the win over Baylor, and Baylor's 1-11 year. But what they're doing right now is unprecedented in their short history, and he's a giant part of it.
Well, and look, sometimes, Texas Tech is, a more high-profile job. But for Jeff Traylor, is it a better job for him?
Right.
That's the more important thing. It might work out great in the short term for people in Lubbock, but in the long term, is it the best for Jeff Traylor? I think we lose the humanity in coaching searches. I think that's what the thing I liked about what he said during that interview is we often forget about, like, no, this is what's best for Jeff Traylor and what he wants in his life. And he likes living in San Antonio. Maybe he doesn't want to go to Lubbock. Maybe, he likes his athletic director. He likes his president. Maybe you don't know how you're going to like Kirby Hocutt and the president at Texas Tech. You're going to like him a lot during a job interview probably because they're going to try to make you like him. Mm-hmm. But if you have somebody you like right now and they're willing to pay you pretty much nearly and give you everything that you want in a contract, it's easy to be like, why would you stay at UTSA when you're not going to win this or that or the other thing? Well, things are changing in college football. So if you can build it up, why not make it yours?
Well, and you're also not guaranteed to do that in Lubbock or in Fort Worth either. I mean, and I think too, I realize money is important. It's basically the gasoline of our entire lives. But I've never been one that's just money. And that's probably cost me. I'd probably have a lot more if I did think that way. But it doesn't. I don't know. It's good to have, but it doesn't make me feel satisfied as a person, if that makes sense. It's not my justification for everything. And so I saw where Texas Tech opened up and, UTSA fans were talking about what they could possibly offer Traylor. And I saw a lot of Tech fans. They're like, man, we're going to money whip him. We're going to, there's no way you can offer the same amount of money. Well, it wasn't about the money for Jeff Traylor, and I respect him a hell of a lot. I mean, I already did respect him, but I respect him even more because of that, because he didn't just take the check and run as soon as he got a chance to, or take the first opportunity to run and do that. He stuck around, and guess what? He's still going to make really good money. And he'll have a chance to make a whole heck of a lot more in the future. And he can keep winning and doing what he's doing in San Antonio until the next door, potentially opens. But I appreciate that about him.
Somebody asked on the chat room, did he coach G.J. Kinney? Yes, he coached against him in Canton, and his dad, who was a former linebacker, all-conference linebacker at Baylor, Gary Joe, stunned Gilmer in a playoff game at Rose Stadium. And the next year, G.J. was playing at Gilmer. His dad, of course, no longer coaching after the incident and with the shooting incident. And he played for Jeff Traylor at Gilmer, put up some huge numbers as well. Yeah. One thing I keep getting from a lot of you, and I've had people tell me this, is if you look at the contract that Jeff Traylor signed, the extension starts in January. Yes, there is still options there because of the buyout. $7.5 million is not until January. I know Jeff enough. I understand coaching changes. I know that people have floated the idea that it doesn't start till January, and it's a legitimate point. If you heard him, you heard him. And I know Jeff well enough that I think he pretty much just stamped that out. At least, and again, in a year or 2 or 3, we don't know what might happen, but I'm happy for him and his coaches. I had one of his coaches contact me last night. He took care of us, and we are grateful.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody's expecting him to be there for all 10 years of a contract. I don't think we're all foolish in that way, but I do think you could hear bringing up just the food aspect of this, like all of the different things that he wanted for his program, and obviously has put a lot of thought into that, and they're about to receive a big boost across a lot of fronts, including the assistant coaching staff, money pool, and things for the players as well. And for those outside of Texas, or even, well, I guess most in Texas would be very well aware of Gilmer, but his run at Gilmer was legendary. I mean, it really was. It was unbelievable. Lots of Division I guys, lots of state championships, lots and lots of wins, and to see him doing this thing now here a few years later, as a top head coach in the state of Texas, and with a whole lot of options, I'm sure, still out there in the future. Very cool. Very happy for him.
We got a break coming up next. I had a chance to spend a little time with Grant Teaff earlier today. An interview about Gary Patterson, who he knew very well. And he also knew that Patterson was not by any means a favorite of Baylor fans. And just coaching changes in general for a guy that used to run the AFCA as their executive director. That's coming up next. And his thoughts about Dave Aranda and Baylor. All of that and more. Sikkim 365 Radio.
Sports bettors, BetUS.com has got your NBA, NHL, college football, UFC, NFL betting lines. Looking at 2 more baseball games potentially to bet on with the World Series. They're up and live for their 27th year. They've got bets on all of it. That's BetUS.com. And with promo codes like Sikkim125, 125% bonus on a cash deposit, or 200% on crypto. You can get even more for your money at BetUS.com, the 3-decade leader. So join now for 125% or 200% bonus with those codes. Just use promo code Sikkim125 or Sikkim200 for all your casino, horses, NFL, college football, Major League Baseball, NBA, UFC, NHL, all that. BetUS.com.
New cars and trucks are coming. New car inventory is low, but GM just announced they will release a steady flow of vehicles through the fall. Now is the time to get on Richard Carr's inbound vehicle list. Choose your inbound vehicle, get on the list, and get your car or truck first. Call Richard Carr Motors or go online to choose your inbound vehicle today. Go to richardcarr.com for details.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness continues to add more weapons to your getting or staying in shape arsenal with 8 brand new treadmills ready for you to run or walk a mile or 2 or 10. And with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman with more courts available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available, their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Everywhere you look, there's energy, passion, and commitment. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and all the locker rooms with showers, sauna, and whirlpool. Upgraded PA system throughout the world-class tennis courts with a youth academy led by pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise available and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Grant Dideker under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent, but you yourself represent your own business, what you do with customers. What separates you think, from everyone else?
I'll educate, let them buy. I'll sit down, go over all the coverages with them, go over everything, make sure they understand it. In case they need to use it, they know what they have, fill in any holes that they may have, or take any excess away that they may not need.
Your personality, who you are to customers, some people have different personalities. How would you describe yourself?
My dad was a coach and teacher. My mom was a teacher, for a few decades each. And again, just I teach, educate, let them buy. And, there's no dumb questions. My dad always said.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Hall of Fame head football coach Grant Teaff, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. You've known Gary Patterson for quite some time. I know he was heavily involved when you were the executive director of the AFCA. Your thoughts about how things have gone south for him, and he no longer is the head coach at TCU?
Well, I certainly feel badly about that because he was a tremendous competitor. I loved playing his TCU teams because they were always very physical, always very tough. And one of the things that I do about Gary as a football coach and later as executive director, that man would not cheat one penny's worth in any area. He was a man of character, still is, a man of integrity, and one really, really good football coach, hard-nosed.
Baylor fans aren't real fond of him because, obviously the rivalry back right before they started the Big Ten, they beat Baylor up pretty good. He and Briles had a pretty fiery, I guess you could say, rivalry. You get that feeling? You got that? You know that, right?
Oh, yeah. And I understand that. But, that doesn't take away from the man and the character that he has and the program that he built. He's a tremendous football coach and a really, really fine man. And I love working with him on the AFCA board.
And he was a part of that Child ID program that you were honored for just a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah, very heavily involved in the Child ID as well as so many other things in our organization. The golf tournament was one of them.
Coach, do you think he'll coach again?
Well, I wish he would. He's a tremendous coach, and he's got a lot left in him. And if I were an athletic director out there with a vacancy, I'd be dialing his number to talk to him, to see where his heart is, to see if he has the passion, that it takes and the willingness to do what it takes to be a head coach, the time, the energy, the effort that it takes, and then the praise and the abuse that goes along both ways with it. But I frankly hope that he will coach again, but I somehow probably think in my heart that he might not.
Well, he did a good job as an analyst in some of those college football championship games when they did that split screen with coaches in a studio, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts as someone who ran the AFCA? There are now more than a half dozen coaches at the Division I level who have been either released, fired, or told they can continue, but they're gone at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's just about as many as I've heard, and this is November the 1st.
Yeah, that's right.
What are your thoughts about that trend?
Well, it's been coming on. You could see it through the last several years. I think it's reaching a peak now because of the importance of winning for a program. The financial aspects of college athletics on the upper level are so dependent on the success of a football program, and then next on the success of their basketball program. So we're going to see in the next 2 years a good number probably of coaches that will be let go because their record is not high enough. It's always, Smoak, that the expectations of the university when they hire a coach, well, he can win every game for us. And I'll tell you a good story and a true story. When I came to Baylor, sitting down with the president at that time, Dr. Reynolds, he looked me in the eye and said, we only expect a championship every 4 years. Well, they hadn't won one. They hadn't won one in 50 years. Come on.
Yeah, and that was at a place that had not won at all, and you, of course, turned that around.
They hadn't won a championship in 50 years.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's important for an administrator to do. You want success every year. If you're going to have athletic programs, you want success because they're costly and they get the front page news. You can have the greatest science experiment come forth over in the labs, and very few people will know about it. But you lose a football game to Texas, and everybody in the world knows about it, you know. So it's just out there in front. We have to accept that. Coaches have to realize that, yes, winning is a part of the reason you've been hired.
You also were there Saturday, and speaking of Texas, Coach Aranda and the Bears are 7-1, moving up in the top 25 poll. They did it methodically. They didn't panic. They were down 11, and they seem to have such a great togetherness.
They do, and let me tell you something. Coach Aranda he's a very soft-spoken guy, but he is excellent football coach. He has a terrific staff around him. And I tell you, he is going to do great things for Baylor because he's not the kind of guy that's going to come in here and have a couple of winning seasons under his belt and then jump somewhere else. I believe in him, and I believe he's here for the long run. And when you get stability, a winning stability, to any of your athletic programs, it's such a positive for the university. The money flows and the cotton grows.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too as well. You know, there are these openings and his name is out there, whether or not anyone's contacted him or not. How would you, like Mike Tomlin, here he is, the longtime coach of a franchise that's had three, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin, and his name surfaced for a couple of jobs, and he basically said, never say never, but never. He was pretty upset, and anyone even asked him about whether a college job was something he'd be interested in with the Steelers. And then there's some that kind of dance around it. Coach Aranda kind of got philosophical about how he loves it here and more than just football, but coaches rarely ever say, I'm not interested. And if they do, most of the time, they're probably lying. How would you handle that? How do you handle that? What's your advice?
Well, I've been through it.
I know.
A few times. And I think the most important thing is just to be upfront about every aspect of it. That doesn't mean that everybody that calls you and wants to talk to you about a job, you should tell the newspaper that I'm talking to so-and-so. But it does mean you keep your university advised, and I believe that's what Coach Aranda's done. I think he's a terrific coach and a great man, and I believe that he will stay here at Baylor and continue to build this program. I hope that he does, because I, along with thousands of fans, really think he is doing a great job.
Coach, as always, thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Well, listen, Smoak, great to talk to you, and have a wonderful day.
Hall of Famer in every way, Grant Teaff on 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio. IdealMRI.com. Right behind us on this set, there's a graphic with their logo with Ideal MRI, one of the title sponsors of this show, Dr. Rob Maxey. They have a state-of-the-art technology. They have an MRI. It's like the ones you need. That's the one that, you go to a big hospital system. They have that. It is a massive, big machine. It can find out what hurts so much in your neck, your shoulder, or possibly even your knee. Ideal MRI will find out what hurts so much. So if your orthopedic surgeon or doctor says, hey, we need to get an MRI on this particular part of your body, they can do that for you. And on top of that, $497 or less every single time. No $497 once and $1,500 the next. Average MRI is $1,100. And I've told this story with a lot of men who watch this show. It depends on how old you get. My two older brothers have battled some pretty bad stuff when it comes to prostate cancer. So I wanted to make sure I was okay. Doctors suggested, hey, you probably need to get an MRI just to make sure. And it does give you some peace of mind, no matter what your PSA count might be. And when I got it back, everything was clear. Nothing. That's good news. And that also just a little bit of peace of mind. So that's something, not just a torn muscle or a torn ligament or something that's hurting, but also just for that. Something to think about as well. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace, just off of 35 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfect pizza. Bob Mock has owned Marco's Pizza franchises since 2013 and has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in the Waco area, in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Order at marcos.com to make any moment better. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal to the end zone, and it is held for the touchdown. Cooper.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of DallasCowboys.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.